Hi my loves, and welcome to Astrology with Dheandra Nicolette. Today I want to talk about the solar eclipse in Libra. When I started diving into my spiritual journey and I got really interested in astrology, I was so fascinated with the new and the full moons. And the new moons are a time of planting seeds. They're a time of figuring out what is the next direction that we want to take, what is the next path or step that we want to cultivate for ourselves. Whereas full moons are a time of harvesting, right? So we've already planted something, a seed in the past, and this is our time to actually take a look at our garden and see what is actually growing, what is doing well, what isn't doing so well, and where we may need to make some changes in the next coming season. So this particular eclipse that we have that's taking place in the sign of Libra is a solar eclipse, and that is very akin to this story of a new moon, the story of, what is next for us? What is the path that we're going to embark upon next? However, it's really interesting because this new beginning is coming to us by way of an ending. And I want to pull up some dates so that we can talk about them, because in order for us to really dive into what this particular eclipse has for us, has in store for us, we need to understand the full story of what's been going on. And if you are not super familiar with astrology or you haven't followed along, I want to catch you up to speed, okay? So in 2023, we had a solar eclipse in Libra, October 14th, 2023. And this was the start of this particular eclipse story that we're seeing play out. So I want you to think back to what was going on in your life in October 2023. And because Libra is a sign that also rules over our relationships, this particular story that we're seeing play out with this particular eclipse, that we're seeing wrap up in order to lead us into this new path and new beginning, it has to do with our relationships. And it doesn't always have to mean our romantic relationships. I think a lot of us end up going down the path of like, were we single? Were we in a relationship? Were we dating? And that could very well be what your particular solar eclipse and Libra, or eclipse in Libra story has to do with. However, it could just be relationships in general. Maybe it's relationships with your employer. Maybe it's relationships with a parental figure. Maybe it's relationships with yourself, or relationships with money, something else in your life. So it's not always about romance and love and romantic relationships, but it can be. But think back to what was happening in October of 2023, because that's when this particular story really kicked off for us. Then we had another eclipse, and this was a lunar eclipse in Libra in March of 2024. So this was March 24th, 2024. And this last eclipse that we're having here in the sign of Libra, this is taking place on October 2nd, 2024. And this is the last of this eclipse series in Libra. We're going to go on to have many more eclipses. Of course, you guys will know this, but they're going to take place in different signs. And of course, they're going to affect different parts of our lives, different versions of our story. I want you to think back to, again, the story that's been playing out for you as it relates to relationships, and perhaps as it relates to boundaries within relationships since 2023, October 2023. Libra is represented by the scales in astrology, which is so interesting because when you think about what Libra stands for and what Libra represents, there's a lot of focus on balance and harmony, right? Balance and harmony. You think about relationships, it's us and someone else, us and another party, us and something else. And usually the idea is that in order for it to be a healthy relationship, there has to be balance in some ways. And whatever balance looks like to us, or what that looks like to us, we get to dictate, we get to say. With this particular Libra eclipse story, it may have been that around October of last year, you recognized where there is an imbalance in a relationship or in several relationships in your life, and you started the steps to create more balance, create more harmony, create more boundaries where you needed them. Maybe this meant that you had to redo your budget and really figure out where you were overspending. Maybe this meant that in a relationship where you were giving and giving and giving and someone else was constantly taking from you, you had to recognize where you needed to set up specific boundaries so you were no longer pouring the most of yourself into someone else who was no longer, or who wasn't pouring enough into you. Maybe this meant that a toxic relationship that you had with a substance in your life, you recognized that this needed to come to an end. This relationship was no longer going to serve you or serve your highest good. This particular story is coming to an end in some way this October. So for a lot of us, this could mean that we are cutting off certain relationships. This could legitimately mean breakups for some of us. This could mean the end of certain business relationships, but this could also just mean the end of an era where we are over-pleasing, where we are being the people pleaser, where we are doing the most and receiving the least, where we are finding ourselves in a position where we feel like we are the victim in our situation because we are so busy pouring into others and feeling as if no one is pouring into us. This is an old story, this is a tired story, and this is one that we're walking away from. This particular eclipse is taking place on the South Node, and I'm still learning about South and North nodes in astrology. The fun thing about astrology is that there's so many different pockets that you can dive into, and it always gets deeper and deeper. There's always something to learn, so I'm really having fun with that. But North Node is kind of the direction that we're moving towards in this lifetime. It represents in some ways our destiny, our future path, our forwardness, whereas South Node represents what we're leaving behind. Maybe lessons that we've already learned, karmic events that needed to take place to close out chapters. And with this particular eclipse taking place on the South Node, it's very representative of a lesson or a chapter or a relationship that you either need to end or close out the chapter on, or set certain boundaries in order for you to move forward with your destined path. We are no longer looking backwards. We're no longer kind of going back to our past and taking stock of what could have been, because that's not what's happening now, right? With this eclipse, it's important to note that around this time, if you're feeling, called to reach out to an ex, or you're kind of reminiscing on a past relationship, it's not necessarily that this particular relationship is one that you need to return to, or one that still has something there for you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the thing about South Node is that it is something that we need to learn the lesson of and move away from as we walk towards our destiny, as we walk towards the path that is new and for us. And so if you're feeling called to revisit something in the past, I would urge you to take some time to maybe journal on that or sit with that, because remembering things from the past doesn't always mean that we are meant to return there. It could just be, the last sort of grasp of our memory on, that particular person or that particular dynamic as you are working to release it. It's kind of like the last sort of, thought process or bubble that pops up around someone before you're truly ready to let go. Eclipses, I will say, it's a time of fated events. It's a time of things unfolding, chapters closing, chapters starting, that are meant to help us grow, help to push us towards our destined paths. So around this time, there's really not much that you need to do in terms of manifestation rituals or anything like that. This is really a time of just kind of working with the energy. And by working with it, I mean sitting within it, looking at what comes up in your thought process, in your dreams, journaling, taking note of these things. But you don't really need to do any specific thing. It's just kind of what is happening, and really all that we're doing at this point is trusting that things are going to be working out for our highest good. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video on the solar eclipse in Libra. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And I do have a podcast called Manifest Daily. On Manifest Daily, I did go through all of the rising signs and all of the things that each rising sign can expect with this particular solar eclipse in Libra. So if you're curious about your particular eclipse story, go ahead and check out the episode on Manifest Daily. And then maybe I'll do some of those rising sign predictions over here for future major astrological events. Anyways, thank you so much, my loves, for tuning in. I will chat with you in the next video. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.